If you were a kid growing up in Australia or New Zealand or the UK in the early 80s, one of the fondest, most memorable aspects of your childhood was undoubtedly the series known as Monkey, a series that was colloquially known as Monkey Magic to many of us due to the theme music. So Monkey was a Japanese-made series set in China that chronicled the adventures of a young boy priest, a Buddhist priest named Tripitaka, and Tripitaka's three disciples, Monkey, who was a monkey king, Sandy, who was a fish god, and Pigsy, who was a glutton and a pig god. So this is a series that fairly ubiquitously shaped all of our childhoods. If you do come from a certain generation of a certain vintage, first aired in Australia here in 1981 at 6 p.m. weeknights on the ABC, which used to be a more egalitarian sort of a national broadcaster that did serve the public at large rather than a increasingly small elitist subset of society, which is unfortunately what it does in 2026. But back in the day, the ABC was quite culturally diverse. It wasn't this homogenous bastion of groupthink that it is today. And it did serve all kinds of different people from all kinds of different walks of life. But one thing that it did do that brought absolutely everyone together in those simpler times was treating us to an episode of Monkey every weekday evening at 6 p.m. and it was an enormous part of our childhood. So Monkey ran, I believe, for only a couple of seasons, but there was a ton of episodes. I think it might have been 50 or 60. And we've all got our favourites. It was a very eccentric, very quirky series, a very politically incorrect series. But back in the day, Monkey at 6 p.m. weeknights was essential viewing. It was required viewing for anyone between the ages of 5 years old and 95 years old. A lot of people wouldn't admit to watching Monkey if they were over a certain age. A lot of us proudly wore watching Monkey on our sleeves. But one nation that never embraced Monkey, and it was always confusing to me, especially as I've travelled throughout the world and met people, and we've shared experiences of our childhood and shared cultural experiences, shared cultural touchstones, particularly a lot of those 80s pop culture touch points, is the fact that Monkey never aired in the United States, which is quite surprising. Usually the United States culturally leads the rest of the world by the nose, and it basically dictated music and literature, film and television for many decades, although whether that continues remains to be seen. But nevertheless, it always did surprise me that Monkey never captured the American imagination, never enchanted American audiences. Most Americans have no idea what Monkey, also known as Monkey Magic, even was. It never entered their radar, their hemisphere whatsoever, and it was one of the great mysteries pre-internet to kids like me as to why Monkey wasn't an aspect of 80s American television. Didn't even air on PBS from what I understand, which would have been the natural place for it. But alas, Americans of my vintage did miss out on this great, darkly comical, surreal, Chinese or Japanese-made Chinese mythological series that did affect so many of us. So why is that? Well, apparently Monkey or Monkey Magic, the series, did find itself caught up in a quagmire of copyright disputes and licensing issues when it came to finding US audiences, and they were never able to find a resolution, unfortunately. And as far as cracking it in the United States, making it in America, like so many bands, so many television programs, so many movies aspired to do, because America was where you made it, Monkey never quite cracked it into that large and lucrative American market. So any of you watching in the United States, you may have clicked on this video in confusion, seeing some unfamiliar faces in the thumbnail, the cast of Monkey, and not knowing what it was about, clicking out of curiosity. And I'd encourage you to embrace that curiosity and seek out Monkey. It is, obviously in this day and age, it is more accessible than it was when it originally aired in the West in 1981. And it is easier to find. You can pick it up on DVD. You can see it here in Australia on the streaming service Broly. For those of you in Australia wanting to revisit Monkey, or those of you overseas who can access Broly through various means, it is available to stream on Broly, which is the streaming service of Umbrella Entertainment, one of the finest DVD and Blu-ray companies here in Australia. So you can check Monkey out again quite easily if you haven't for some time, and I'd highly recommend revisiting it with fresh eyes, fresh middle-aged Gen X eyes, for those of you of a certain vintage like myself. So it has been one of those enduring mysteries why Monkey was never embraced by American audiences, never enchanted American audiences, but I hope you have your answer right here, in that it was that old chestnut of copyright issues and rights issues and things like that. So that's about as simple and as complicated as it gets. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you like this video and you'd like to see more things along the same lines, I guess you know what to do. Please like, share and subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Take it easy.